All right, so today is called Family Business. So a couple of years ago, we had reason to get together with our family and sit down around the dinner table and have some business. And as our kids were growing up, whenever we felt like something was wrong, we would usually use the dinner table, you know, after everybody's full and a little bit more docile and whatever, and seated for a little while. And so I'm going to try, I don't know how long it's going to last, I'm going to try sitting here at the table with you guys. And sharing some of the things that I feel like God has in front of us as a church. I am certainly not God or the Holy Spirit, but as your pastor, I want to share a couple things with you. And so just want to call it family business. So if you believe in what God is doing at Hope, if you are a part of this ministry, this is for you. If you are not, don't worry. There are things that we're going to talk about today that apply across the board to any church that would be your home church. And so whether this is your church or not, I think God can work in it. I feel like the church right now is, if I could say this, and maybe this registers with you, maybe it doesn't. The church universal, the church, especially in America, is having the wrong argument with the world. I feel like we're in a fight with the world, but I feel like we're in a fight over things that aren't making a difference. If we win the fight, I don't feel like we win. Do you know what I mean? I feel like a place, we just sang this morning, a place where the body of Christ gathers together and the Spirit of the living God is in this place. Do you believe the Spirit of the living God is in this place? Okay, so the Spirit of the living God is in this place and many other places that worship, millions of places that worship this morning. The argument we should be having really should be a simple one. That people come, experience the power of the living God, and are changed. How do you argue with that? You see, I feel like we have set aside what is the birthright and the earmark of Christianity. And we have engaged the world on a bunch of stuff where we don't have a shot at actually winning. Because they don't get it. They're in darkness. How do we expect the followers of darkness to see the light? They can't. What they need to do is have the light. And who did Jesus say is the light? You are the light of the world. So I don't want us to drift into what I see happening in the world. And I feel like sometimes we get this right and sometimes we get this wrong. But I want to pull us back to, at the very start here, to what is our mission as a church. And I think I've seen this playing out in our church many, many times. And when I say our church, I'm talking about the people in our church family are accomplishing this, and this is happening in their lives. There is salvation, there is hope, there is redemption, there is healing, there is life, there is peace that God is providing in the lives of people. When it comes down to it, we call our church Hope Christian Fellowship because we believe our mission is to share hope. Real, living, eternal hope that comes not by the power of man or the wisdom of man, but from our Creator, from Almighty God. This is not a hope like cross your fingers and I hope. This is a hope like I know that there's a resurrection and we will rise again. And when I see my loved one go into the ground and my heart is broken for saying goodbye to them, I know that I will see them again. This is the kind of hope we have to share. And that is our mission. That is what we are about. Because God is a redeeming God. There is nothing that is broken that God cannot fix. There is no one too far gone that God cannot redeem. And we believe that. And we have lived that and experienced that in our lives. And because of that, we share that. No matter who walks through the door, no matter what their story is, nothing is beyond the capacity of God to save. Not a broken family, not a wrecked marriage, not betrayal, not a sinful past, not a sexual orientation or a lifestyle of immorality, not an addiction. Nothing is beyond the power of God to save. If you will by faith come to him, God's power is our hope that we get to share. We have nothing to share from us, but we have everything to share from the one who saves us. We believe with all of our hearts that salvation offered through Jesus Christ is real. And we have experienced it for ourselves. So we need to live in that hope. Even when the world around us and our country seems more of a mess than ever before. Even when my experience in my life has seen really dark days and I've been really bruised and broken. Even when the church itself, instead of being a minister of hope, has been a part of the problem in my life. We still believe there is hope for people. And so I want to talk through a couple things today because I want our church to powerfully serve God's kingdom exactly how God created it to serve it. And that requires more than me knowing right answers and wrong answers or me doing a good job as pastor. That requires every single one of us who are the church being in sync and kind of sorting through the things that help us and the things that don't help us. As a leadership team, as a group of elders, we have been praying and looking for ways to expand our capacity to minister. Because as God brings more people and our church continues to grow, we've grown every single year of our existence, and we are still growing this year. And because of that, we constantly are challenged by the Spirit of God. How can we expand our capacity to minister? And so I want to talk about some steps today that we are pursuing. I want to give you some information so you guys are on board so you can pray with us about some things that we are talking about and considering. But I also want to challenge us, and I'm going to start with some things that you can do, we all can do, that are very simple and straightforward steps that I need every single one of us by the prompting of the Spirit to take if we can. Now, what I'm going to talk about to start is admittedly not very popular in the world. And I want to kind of give a context to this. I feel like as a society, maybe, I hope this makes sense to you because it really makes sense in my head. As a society, I feel like we have become people who expect that anything that is important for me to know, someone will make sure I know it. I won't have to dig or look or search something out or study for myself or look. It's going to show up on my phone in a Twitter feed or on Facebook or something like that. It'll just show up. Do you guys get what I'm saying? I feel like we have gotten to that place as a society where that expectation has overwhelmed any sense that I need to own what I know and I believe and I've learned it for myself. And on top of that, because there are so many voices, we've kind of waved the white flag at knowing it for ourselves because how am I supposed to know? Well, this person says this and that person says that and whatever. And so we've drifted into this idea that learning is just going to be bite-sized for us all the time and show up in front of us whenever we need it. And we do that with news cycles, politics things, kind of anything in life. But I'm afraid that we as a church could get sucked in, and maybe we have started to get sucked into this idea that our spiritual life should be bite-sized and easy. That I should be able to essentially drive into church on Sunday morning, pick up what I need, and keep going into my busy life. Anybody fallen into that? And if I'm too busy, I don't even need to drive in. I'll watch something online or I'll read a devotional and I'm good. Someone will provide it for me. I don't need any determination, any faithfulness, any passion. And I don't want us to lose the capacity or the desire to understand that we are responsible for what has our attention, for where we spend our time, for what happens as a result of this gathering of believers. We are responsible for this. To allow the power of God to work through us, but not because we have our attention over here and God's dragging us over there, but because this has our passion and this has our attention and our spiritual life matters to us. Casual interaction spiritually, coupled with the assumption that everything important will come tackle you to the ground, is a devastating lie. And we need to swim against the current of this in our life. I think we think, well, we're so busy and we've gotten more and more busy and I don't have time and I don't have energy to do anything about it. But that doesn't actually stop you from reaping what you sow. You understand what I'm saying to you? You may have every reason in the world to say, I am too busy to dig in, to serve, to be faithful, to put priority on this. I just hope it all happens. But I'm saying to you, you may have every reasonable excuse in the world, and you could talk to dozens of people who say, yeah, you're too busy. But when it comes down to it, it does not exempt you from the fallout of the choices that you make, even if you say to yourself, I'm not making those choices. You are the one who decides where you spend your time and what you give your attention to. And I'm saying we have got to move past this mindset in whatever way it has taken hold of us if we want to fulfill our mission and step into the great work that God has called us to. There is no room for indecision and inattention. Instead, we must deliberately and doggedly pursue what matters. So here's what I'm saying, and I'm going to talk about this more in a minute. As a church, we have taken a position, and decidedly so, of a non-judging church. We don't look around and like, what's wrong with you, and why are you a person? And we don't do that. We are not a rules-based faith. Did you smoke this week? Did you drink this week? Did you go to the movies? You know, all the things that were like a checklist. We are not checklist Christians. We are not a high-pressure church, and I think that is good. That is what it should be. But here's what happens. Because we're not that, somebody comes to us and they keep backing up from the things God's called them to. Their turn in the schedule shows up and they can't come because of whatever thousands of different reasons they can't come. Or they were involved and now they've taken a step back. And we as a church constantly say, yeah, it's no problem. It's no problem. It's no problem. I'm concerned, church family, I'm concerned that we will no problem ourselves into a big problem. And just because we let you off the hook and we're not mad at you, doesn't mean it's not going to be a problem. And I think we're already starting to see the problem, not because we should take a different approach as a church, but we should take a different approach as believers, as the church, to the things that God has called us to. We cannot just float along with whatever's convenient, whatever fits our schedule, whatever that means, whatever makes us comfortable, we can't just float along with it. I read a thing this week that I thought really hit me. It said, your comfort zone is a wonderful place, but nothing grows there. We comfort ourselves, find the place where I feel good here, I feel comfortable here, but you never are challenged in your comfort zone. You're never growing in your comfort zone. You're just floating along. Jesus did not save us as his church to float along. He did not say, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature so we could just float along. And evangelism and winning this world and seeing redemption happen doesn't happen as you float along in convenience and comfort and ease. You know this, right? I'm not surprising you with this. If we're going to be faithful, we have to choose to be faithful. If we're going to raise a generation that follows Jesus and knows him and is devoted to him, we're going to have to do it on purpose. We're going to have to choose to feed what grows that. If we're going to stand before God one day in judgment, maybe he'll call people by churches and he'll be like, all right, Hope Christian Fellowship, 2019, stand up. How'd you guys do? If we want to be good in that moment, we have to make choices that will make us happy that we did what we did when we stand before the Lord. Well, Lord, I was busy. Well, Lord, it was hard. Well, Lord, it was inconvenient. Well, I didn't feel good. I was in dark night. What do you think you'll say when we stand before him? So all I'm doing is asking that God search our lives and our hearts, because as a church, this belongs to all of us. So there's lots of things that we could talk about for our individual lives, but my point today is going to be talking to us as a community, as a church family. I'm just hoping to lead and to pastor here, to point us as a church towards what is spiritually life-giving and healthy, and ask each of us to follow the Spirit in this on mission. So I have 4 things I want to talk to you about. Each of them starts with a P, because I'm cool like that. The first one is actually in Philippians, which also starts with a P. And so I want to read something from Philippians that we based some of the approach we have on as a church. And I want to ask some of you that maybe have been on the sidelines about this to step into this. So Philippians chapter 1, I'm going to start at 3 and go down to verse 6. It says this: I thank my God every time I remember you. In all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy, because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. This is Paul talking to the church of Philippi, and he uses a word, and he talks about them and their community, their church coming together, and is the word partnership. I thank God when I think about your partnership. So as a church, when we began, we decided that if somebody wanted to join our church, we would call them a partner as opposed to a member. And we came from Philippians chapter 1 on that. There is a procedure that we have to officially become a partner. Now, many of you are a part of our church. In almost every way, you are a part of our church, except for this partnership thing. I want to encourage you today to take this step, because it does have meaning, and it does matter to us, to the church, and even for you. There is value in formally taking a step forward. It's a way that you say to the rest of the church, I'm in. This is my church. God has brought me here, and I want to be called a partner. I want to be someone who is sharing in the calling of this ministry. I want to be part of what God is doing here. So when we win, we all win. When it's heavy, we all carry it together. And recognizing that we cannot accomplish what God wants us to accomplish on our own. We're not a bunch of lone rangers and we gather together, we huddle up and like, all right, this is good. And then we go out and we're all on our own. We are a church joined together by the Spirit of God. And so our calling is collective. So I'm saying there's value in making the declaration that this is my church, because it declares a commitment. And that commitment matters. Now, I'm not talking about just having a label. We're not big into labels and you're this officer or you're the head of that, or what, like labels for us can be empty. I'm talking about declaring yourself and living it out. I often say this to pre-marriage counseling or at a wedding. The words that you've said are great words. The words you're going to say on your wedding day are great words, but they don't do anything for you unless you actually do them, right? So partnership is a great concept, and formal declaring yourself is an awesome thing, but I'd rather have someone deeply committed in serving who never takes that formal step of partnership. But I'm asking for both. Be a partner and partner with us. That we have 117 partners or something. We have 400 people show up on Sunday morning. I'm kind of like, folks, what's up? Let's do this thing. Let's break through this thing today. And if you are not a partner, become a partner. And just because everything needs to be convenient and right in front of you, I have provided for you sheets right up here. So come up after the service and get them. And next week, if you're not, I will put them in your hands, or I will send them to you on your phone. Anyway, do that for us. I think that's a big deal, and it's the first one I wanted to talk about. God, let the Lord convince you, if this is your church, to be a partner at church. All right, so partner, first thing. Second thing I want to talk about is participation. And this is kind of across the board. So I'm going to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Because when I talk about partner, I'm talking about partnership. More than just words. We need you to declare yourself, but then we need you to partner with us. That means participation. That means there's a principle in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 here that we need to live out. So let me read 1 Corinthians chapter 12, start at verse 13 down to verse 20. It says this: "For we were all baptized by one Spirit so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free. And we were all given one Spirit to drink, so that even so the body is not made up of one part, but of many parts. Now the foot, if the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? And if the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. So there's this principle in Scripture that we find, and it is about how God designed the church to function together. Paul uses this illustration of a body. Each of you here today are here in a body, right? Yeah, this is a slam dunk one. You could be like, yes, that's true. That is true. All right, each of you are here today in a body. If right now one part of your body is not working, are you aware of it? Most likely you are aware of it. If you got up this morning and one part of your body was in pain, are you aware of it? You probably are aware of that, right? And you're like, why did you bring that up, Mark? I just forgot about it. We are all connected as a body. And so some of what he's saying here is each part is important because God put us here, and no one should be seen as less or more important. But it goes beyond that sense of uniqueness and value. It goes down to this. The design that God gives us is so that the body will function together. So that each part will do what each part is called to do. What that means simply is this. If you are a part of Hope, God put you here to serve. Every single part of our church should be serving. And Paul likens it to, if you are here as a part of our church and you are not serving somewhere, it's like we don't have an eye. We're missing an ear. You know, our heart's not working. We're missing stuff. That's what he's comparing it to. That's what he's teaching us. Every single person who is a part of Hope should be serving. And what I said before, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but not just when it's convenient, not just when it's easy. Some of you, and whether this is your home church or not, some of you have taken to bouncing around from church to church and never being committed to a church because then you're never on the line to actually join in and be a part of the cause and serve. And I'm telling you, you may have found a loophole, but you haven't gained yourself anything. Not because we need you desperately to serve here at Hope, because I'm telling you as a pastor, your spiritual well-being depends on you functioning. Some of you are serving, but you're serving as cover. You're serving in convenient ways, but you have never really been honest with the Lord. What are you asking me to serve in? What are you asking me to do? You've been held back, and you serve in these ways that are manageable, but God's asking you for more, and you're just kind of like, that's enough. I can't tell you how many people over the past 4 or 5 years have been involved in kids ministry and served 1 month out of 3, and then they're like, oh, it's too much for me. I can't do this. And it makes me wonder, is that the Spirit of God pulling you back, or is that something else pulling you back? The body needs to function together. Now, there is always an allowance here and an understanding here that there are people who come who are burnt and are healing. And if that's you, take your time. Heal up. But don't take more time than it takes. Be ready, be eager for God to reinvigorate you to serve again. Because a healthy believer serves. It's part of what it means to be a believer. We follow in the steps of Jesus. Jesus did not come to be served, but to serve. Right? So if you've been around for a while, you've heard this phrase. We talk about people over program. Second core value we have. First one is we walk by faith and not sight. The second one is we value people over program. And the third one is we value transparency, that people see Christ and not us. These are our 3 core values. People over program. And we value that. What we mean when we say people over program is that we value you personally more than what you can do for us. We value you more than what you can do. People over program. In other words, if a program has to suffer or a person has to suffer, the program suffers, not the person. We are not interested in getting into some kind of cycle of burnout with volunteers. We want to guard people against over-serving. We want people who are volunteers to be pastored into vibrancy and health. And we want to do everything we can to avoid that burnout thing. But the reason I want to talk about it with you today is this. There's a vulnerability to every truth. There's a vulnerability because we are human beings and our flesh twists it. And I feel like the vulnerability as we talk about people of a program is that we start to sort out our roles in church as though there is not a call to sacrifice or hardship or inconvenience or devotion, that it's all about whether it's light and easy or not. As a matter of fact, basically I feel like we get to the place where anything that comes up, no matter, we never evaluate the merits of it, whatever comes up supersedes church. The reason I want to talk with you about it is because it could get in the way of our mission that we are responsible for collectively, but also it can get in the way of your spiritual health. Because what is actually good for people, when we talk about people of a program, we're talking about what's good for people, not what's good for the program. What's good for people is not always easy, convenient, fun, or entertaining. Contrary to the culture we live in, what is good for people, what is refreshing for people, what is life-giving for people is not always convenient, easy, fun, or entertaining. I'm ringing in my heads with some words of the one we follow who said, Mark chapter 8, verse 34, "If anyone would come after me and be my disciple, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." Boy, that's hard to put into I don't feel like it. Yeah, it's too hard. Yeah, I got a chance to go to the beach today, so church, goodbye. Oh, there's a baby shower this morning, so church, goodbye. Like, isn't that hard to fit in there? Deny yourself, take up your cross, follow me. Where in your life right now are you following Jesus that kind of devotion? Because that's what it takes to be a believer. That's what it takes to be a part of the body of Christ. David in the Old Testament, at the end of a long story about David falling and failing, decides that he is going to build a house for God. And he meets God in the midst of a plague on this specific place. God calls him to this specific place. And he goes to buy this land that eventually is going to become the place where the temple is built. And the guy who owns the land says to David, "I will give it to you." And David says to him, "I will not offer to the Lord something that costs me nothing." Believers, I think we can easily drift into the idea that I will give God whatever I can afford to give him. Whatever is easy, whatever costs me nothing or very little or doesn't hurt to give. I'm not talking about money, although money comes into that. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm talking about my service. We follow one who gave his life. How about us? We have to hold on to the idea that we cannot convenient our way into spiritual good. While we don't want to burn out anyone, we want people devoted to serving, people who believe in what we're doing here. Do you believe in the mission of what we're doing here? If you do, it takes devoted, faithful, committed, passionate service for that to happen. The norm has become too often that when something gets in the way, church goes. And I'm concerned about our mission. I'm concerned about the ins and outs of the week, but I'm really concerned about what we are teaching the generation to come. About the convenience of church, about how it loses basically every showdown every time. If anything comes up, church goes. Because I'm not going to get in trouble, because I'm not going to lose any money. Do you treat your job the same way you treat church? For many of us, we go to our job faithfully because if I don't go to my job, they stop paying me. But if I don't go to church, I just miss church and I can catch it online and no big deal. But I'm saying to you, it's a much bigger deal than that. I'm saying this morning, if you can't imagine why it's a problem that we do that, and that handicaps us as a church, I don't really know what to say to you. But if you get it, I'm saying, let's be faithful. Let's be faithful. If you are scheduled for a given day, if there's a call that goes out and the Spirit is, hey, you should do that and you should make that sacrifice, be there. Our mission depends on us as a church responding to the Spirit of God. participation. Third thing I want to talk about is our projects. And I just want to talk about this briefly, more or less to give you an update, but also to ask you not to forget about it. We give weekly for the work of God at Hope, supporting, fueling what God is doing here. It is one of the ways we actually very much reflect the partnership, that we all bear the burden together. So if you're not giving to Hope and you're a part of Hope, you're not really partnering with us. And you need to be. I will say, caveat, I don't know who gives what, and I don't care. That's why I can say this to you, because if I'm looking at you, I have no idea what you give. But you know who does? The one who gave you that money. And he gave it to you for some reasons. And one of those reasons is for the work of God at the church that you belong to. So give. And if you're only giving what is convenient and easy, you're not really choosing to value what God is doing here. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the future and why it's important that we grow in our giving. But I just wanted to take a moment and talk about the process that we're in to raise money to fix some of the big issues here at church, particularly our heating and air conditioning stuff. All right? When we got here, we didn't have any air conditioning in the classrooms. We put some window units in. We got to some units on the wall, and even those were pretty unreliable. I think this is the first year at VBS we didn't lose air conditioning. And VBS is traditionally the hottest week of the year. Whenever we have VBS, if you want to know what will be the hottest week of the year, when we have VBS will be the hottest week of the year. This year we had incredible storms roll through at VBS. But it's the first year, because of the money that we've collected and the way we've deployed that, we fixed those classroom units, and they were reliable for us, which was a really awesome thing, really cool thing, right? We are working on the air conditioning for the auditorium. If you were here for the kickoff Sunday of VBS, it was warm in this room and couldn't quite keep up because some of them aren't quite functional. We're in the process of working on that. We're taking the money that's been invested, and we got the deck built out here. We have the condenser units out, and now we've got some process to do from there. So we are in process. When we get done with those, then we got boilers that are decades and decades old to get after. So we are moving forward on it. Right now, we have some more money to raise. I think we've raised $52,000 out of the 65, so we have about $13,000 left. We've been at this for almost 2 years. Folks, we need to finish this. So I don't know who God's going to give that money to come in, but you'll know it, and you'll do it. And so I'm just reminding you so that there's some clarity to why we're doing that. We need to kind of have that happen. We need to get going. We need to finish that. And I wanted to show you in Exodus why we do it like we're doing. Why we just put that call out there for the house of God and then collect it as you give it. It's actually a biblical pattern. In Exodus, the first place of worship is made by the direction of God. It's called a tabernacle. It was basically a big tent with a big courtyard around it. How did they make that tent? Well, in Exodus 35, they made it like this. Verse 5. Moses says to the people, "From what you have, take an offering for the Lord. Everyone who's willing to bring to the Lord an offering of gold and silver and bronze," and then he goes on to all kinds of other things. Basically, look at what you have and bring it out, and we will build the tabernacle out of the stuff that you bring. So how did God's people respond to that? Well, the next chapter, I love this. Next chapter, chapter 36, Moses talks to the guys who are in charge of it. So chapter 36, verse 2. Then Moses summoned Bezalel and Aholiab and every skilled person to whom the Lord had given ability and who was willing to come and do the work. They received from Moses all the offerings the Israelites had brought to carry out the work of constructing the sanctuary, and the people continued to bring free will offerings morning after morning. So all the skilled workers who were doing all the work on the sanctuary left what they were doing and said to Moses, "The people are bringing more than enough to do the work of the Lord that the Lord commanded to be done." Then Moses gave an order, and they sent the word throughout the camp, "No man or woman is to make anything else an offering for the sanctuary." So the people were restrained from bringing more because what they had already had was more than enough to do the work. When the people of God get a hold of the vision, they give more than enough. So some of what I'm saying to you, when we talk about we need to bring this in so we can fix the house of God and we're doing this together as a partnership, comes from the pattern we see from the people of God. And we believe that God provides all that we have. So I'm saying to you, that's why we put that challenge in front of you this year, that we need to grow in our giving and we need to finish some of this stuff out because we believe that God is still faithful. God still provides for his people, for his church, for the building, for the ministry. for the things that are going on. And so that principle is pretty simple. We collectively need to have the same heart and the same actions as those Israelites, that no simple money matter would hinder us from our mission. All right? All right, last one. I want to give you some things that are happening, some news things, and ask you to pray with us over this. So we talked about partnership, we talked about participation, we talked about our projects. Now I'm going to give you some things to pray about. We have been praying as a leadership team for a little bit over our future. And I want to share with you some of the things that we are thinking, not because we've come to necessarily decisions on all these things or even many of these things, but because we've got a feel, and I want you as the body to be in on this feel and to be praying with us, seeking the Lord with us on it. One of the things that we've come up against is we need to expand our capacity to minister. And so on Sunday mornings in the fall, you'll notice that this place is pretty full. What does that mean for us? How do we continue to expand our capacity going forward? People often build a large building. I'm not sure we have time to build a large building. I'm not sure that's the best use of $1 million, $2 million to build a large building or buy a property somewhere. So we've kind of set that idea aside. Sometimes people plant churches elsewhere and have, new churches planted. That's an awesome thing. I don't feel like we're sniffing that. I don't feel like we're like right around that area. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can smell a new church. No, I don't feel that happening, right? So we're looking at how do we get to where we need to go so that more people, we can continue to have more and more people. The other thing that we've kind of noticed is that as a church, we work better small. It's one of the reasons small groups is such a big deal for us. But even on Sunday morning, I value the fact that when people come in, I can know people. I can notice when someone's here or not here. I feel like we do, as a church, our personalities, we do a better job in smaller zones. So when we were one service and we were pushing 300, it was kind of tough. It was kind of mayhem. We went to two services and that kind of broke our heart. Like we're not all in the same building at the same time. But I feel like it really helped us. We kind of, like at the service you're at, you got a better shot of talking to people and knowing people and recognizing who sits in front of you and behind you. So we want to be a growing church, but we want to have that small church feel. So one of the potential decisions in front of us, and I feel like it may well be the way God will wind up leading us, is to take two services and make three. And I know I said before, I'll never do that, but God does what he wants to do and we do what he tells us to do. So I don't know if that's what's coming, but that seems like the only viable solution for us to continue growing. So I'm saying to you as a church body, I don't want to make that decision solely, and I don't just want the elders to make that decision. I want us to pray about it. So I want to ask you to put that before the Lord, because I feel like it means we all have the opportunity then to carry the task of seeing where God's taking us. And no matter whether that's the answer or something else is, it reminds us that we all need to carry the task of making this place feel like home. Please don't ever lose. That's somebody else's, that's the greeter's job. If you're in a classroom and you don't know someone, please say hi to them. If someone walks in and sits down in front of you, please say hi to them. If you don't know them, please say, would you remind me your name? And they'll be like, oh, this is my first time, or I've been here for 3 years, or what's your name? They don't know you either. We all need to carry the responsibility of making this a welcoming, warm place. So pray with us about how we continue to provide capacity to grow. Other thing I want to talk about is the future. And the future always includes the next generation. And when I say next generation, we always think young, and young is a big part of that, but it really means young and old. There are next generations of people coming here, regardless of their age, they're the next generation of hope. You know what I mean? Just because someone's young and they're going to grow into it, that's fine. But someone comes and they're going to be with us for 10 years, they're the next generation of hope as well. The future for hope matters. And we want to find out how to do this. I want this place to go on and provide for the kingdom and do the work of God long after I am done being the pastor here. Long after I'm not even on this earth. How about you? I want this place to just keep going. And so how much does it matter that the next generation is fully engaged in the life of the church? Let me ask you, church, because this is your calling. How much does it matter that the next generation is fully engaged in the life of this church? Pretty big, right? How much is the faith of the next generation worth to us? Well, for us right now, we are looking at how do we put our eyes on that? How do we seek the Lord on that? How do we follow the Lord on that? I will tell you, a vibrant kids ministry is very key. We will reach our kids better than we will reach anyone else. If you think being in the toddler class or the nursery class is just a childcare thing, you could not be more wronger. It is a key to the next generation that we faithfully serve our kids. Youth group is a key. Young adults group is a key. These are passionate, powerful things. And we have people at the lead of these, but the success of those groups matters to all of us. This past year, we deliberately took a step and we asked you to add younger guys to our elder team. It isn't that we are against older guys on the elder team. I would like 2 more guys or 3 more guys. I would love it. But we wanted to specifically look at the younger generation as an elder team and say, who could we see that could walk with us? So we've added Dave and Ryan as elder candidates this year and said, walk with us. Let's see if we can do this together. Because we're trying to take a deliberate approach at looking at next generation. There are some other things that are happening. Dave mentioned that Dan has been placed as our assistant youth pastor, and we are thrilled about that. Dan did an awesome job last week. I'm excited for the future of our youth ministry and for Dan's future as he grows in that. We also have an assistant worship leader, which is Kylie. She has been serving us for a long time as a volunteer, and she continues to volunteer. But now we said, we want you in that role because we feel like God has called you to that role. We are not paying any of them right now, but we would like to somewhere in the future because we think devoting more of their time and attention to ministry and getting their teeth cut on what it takes to be vocationally in ministry would be a great thing for us as a church and for next generation as we go. Another thing we've been praying about for a while is assistant pastor. And you've seen it in your newsletter for the past year. We have explored all kinds of things, and I'm not going to give you the blow by blow, but we've explored all kinds of things over the past year as we talked about assistant pastor. But as a leadership team, I would say over the last 6 weeks, we have come to a conclusion that we feel like we have a certain avenue to pursue. And we want you to pray with us about this. Nothing's been decided, but we want you to pray with us about this. So what we believe that God may well be calling Dave, who is currently our youth pastor, to step into the role of assistant pastor. And we are going to ask you to seek the Lord with us on that as we continue the discussions, as we see where God leads and takes that. We welcome your discussion with us about it. But we are looking for God to lead. I really feel like this is something God is doing, and I could explain to you why. We spent Thursday night as a leadership team talking about this at length, and I explained to them why. But I think there are some things that God is doing here, but we are not presumptive about it. So pray with us. What I want you to know is that in youth group, nothing will change in the school year. Dave is going to be our youth pastor. He's going to continue to be it. Dan's going to be our assistant. Nothing's going to change for the school year. We're going to be exploring this. Maybe sometime this fall or around the annual business meeting or in the new year, we'll come to our partners and say, we think this is a move to make, or, hey, we thought it was, but it didn't work out. But we'll come to you and see if that's something that we can all agree on together. So that is something coming, and that is a burden we are bearing as elders and leaders. It's a burden we want to share with you. When we talk about next generation, one thing I want to be clear about. The generation that is here is doing a phenomenal job. Older generation, you guys are serving like crazy. We respect and appreciate the service you are giving, and we believe that God sees and acknowledges every sacrifice, every act of faithfulness, every love poured out. If you're in the middle generation, if you're like that generation with little kids and you kind of been on the sidelines or whatever, we need you. Even though you're busy, we need you. And many of you have stepped up, and those of you who have sacrificed that way, we need you. The younger generation, I want you to understand that we, as church leadership, see you as vital. Church, I'm saying this in front of you because I want you to mimic these words. Too often when we deal with the younger generation, we do this. What's wrong with you? Why are you doing that? Why wouldn't you? The younger generation here at Hope is already serving. If you don't believe me, come out to VBS. Walk down the halls on a Sunday morning and peek in the classrooms. See all the teens and 20-somethings and 30-somethings that are serving the Lord every single Sunday. But young people, we want you involved. Even with your mess, even with you, I don't even know who I am yet. We want you. Come serve with us. We need you. We think it is an awesome thing that God will use every single one of us. And we're going to love watching what you're doing, and we're going to love watching you grow. So these are things that I'm putting in front of you because I think it's something that all of us need to know and own. I'm going to ask you to pray with us and for us. And I think God has great things in store for us as a church family. Do you?